Lessons for Life Monday night will be live in 2 minutes. If you want to join the conversation, click the link in the description. We'll be very happy to hear from you.
Is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
So I said to Andre, I'm going to go live. I'm going to keep it very casual, and it doesn't matter about the topic or anything, just so that people can come in and have a discussion. Nothing too polemic. And he goes, all right, then let's go with who owns Palestine? The most controversial question you can probably ask at the moment, or for the last 75 years. And Andre wants to debate me on that if he shows up. He's not here at the moment, so the floor is yours, Pete. And you had an interesting topic yourself anyway. Hold on a minute, Pete. I can't hear you. I wonder why. Have I muted you, or have you muted yourself? Pete's gone. Pete, re-click the link and you'll be back straight in, and hopefully we can hear you. And if Andre's lurking in the background, I've got ready for you, Andre. I've got the book out and everything. Rise and Kill First. The secret history of targeted assassinations by Ronan Bergman. It's a cracking read, real page turner. But as you're not here, we're going to go with Pete. Hello, Pete. Welcome back, mate.
Oh, sorry about that. I was clumsy with my finger just then.
Oh, that's all right. It happens.
Okay,
Yeah,
Palestine.
look, no, you don't have to go Palestine. Look, that was Andre's idea. If he
Okay,
shows up, we can talk about it.
yeah.
I've spoken about it so many times. People know what I think. You
Okay.
can talk about it if you wish, but
Well, to me, Palestine belongs to the creator of the cosmos,
mm,
and sort of bringing it down to a more down to earth level belongs to the human race. And uh, I suppose to a certain extent, we have a fait accompli that there are lots of Israeli Jews living there,
mhm.
and it. I mean, if you turf all
Now,
the
forgive my French, pardon. Fait accompli means that it's been done. Something that's a reality. Reality
well,
on the ground. Is that what we mean?
something like that, yeah, because the reality on the ground is that the British Isles have been overrun by Germans in the Dark
Yeah,
Ages,
the
Angles,
Anglo-Saxons,
Saxons,
as that.
uh,
Yeah. Okay.
Scandinavians, Vikings,
Yeah.
and to give the British Isles back to the Celts would be a bit silly.
But the Celts still live here, don't they? In
Yeah, but
Wales,
they
in
can't. But they
Cornwall,
don't.
in Scotland.
Yeah, but they don't inhabit the whole country. There's lots of
But
immigrants for last 1,000 years.
for sure. And running through the veins, there must be Celtic DNA even in the most blonde Anglo-Saxon people.
Absolutely, yeah. And also, if you want to say, well, the Celts are invaders, it should really go back to the Beaker people.
Mm.
Before the English Channel collapsed
I
or
see. I
came into
see.
being.
I
How far
see
do you
that.
go back to get to the original inhabitants? For example, the United States of America. Do you turf out all the European whites so you can give the United States back to the Native Americans? No, it's a fait accompli. There's lots of white people living there now. So
But
I think
there have been reparations paid, no? And
I don't
most
know.
people agree it was wrong what happened to the Native Americans.
Yes, but
Mm.
given that there are kind of German descendant invaders living in most of the British Isles now,
Mhm.
what do we do with the situation now? We get
Well,
along.
we have peace and everyone lives together as an equal.
Exactly. Now, in the Holy Land, if you had a situation where the Jews, the Muslims, the Arabs, the Druze, the Christians, a few of them, if they all respected each other as equals before the law, and everybody had the same privileges, the same um, enjoyment of citizenship, then hopefully eventually the cultures would get to know each other and become friends and appreciate each other's theology, appreciate each other's history and culture, and live as equals before God, which I think is the ultimate consequence of believing in the oneness of the entire human race.
And what
So
would you
I
call
think that's the way
that?
forward for the
That's a fantastic way forward. What would you call that country?
well, do you call Derry or Londonderry? Do you say London stroke Londonderry, Derry stroke Londonderry, or Israel stroke Palestine? Does it matter? It's a
Yeah, I don't think
an
it does
area.
matter. I
Well,
think we get caught up in these things like names and what you're going to call the country. What really matters is, are the people living there being treated equally and being given the full rights and citizenship that every human being deserves under the Human Rights Charter, is it?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, in the writings, it says we should root out the causes of contention. If the causes of contention are to a certain extent, well, who are the chosen people? Well,
Mm.
I remember I heard of a verse in the New Testament where I think St. Paul calls Christianity the new Israel. So
Mm.
from 33 AD, arguably, the Christians became the chosen people.
Well, they
Uh,
regard themselves as such, don't they? And hymns like Jerusalem talks about
yeah,
England being the new Jerusalem.
yep. And if Christian theology went off the rails a bit by 325 in the Council of Nicaea, and a couple of hundred years later, Islam arrived, and the Muslims became the chosen people, and then the Babis, then the Baha'is. So ultimately, the whole human race is the chosen people, whatever revelation they adhere to. And I think that's the way forward. So if the Jews and if the followers of Moses and the followers of Muhammad in the Holy Land acknowledged, without changing their religion necessarily, but they acknowledged the divine origin of each other's revelations and recognized their equality before God, I think that would go a long way to solving all the problems. And why not?
Right.
You know, what's the problem with acknowledging that Islam is another revelation from God? You know, you don't have to become a Muslim, but you know, as a Jew or a Christian, why not acknowledge its divine origin and then carry on being a Christian or a Jew? And
I think that's a great idea, but how could you, and why would you acknowledge another religion and then not accept it?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Well, you know, I think there are a lot of people who, well, my understanding is a lot of people acknowledge the divine origin of a religion that's come later, but they don't convert, and that's okay.
And are you duty bound to convert to the latest religion? If you believe there's been another prophet after Moses, are you duty bound, or can you say, no, I like to follow Moses, I'm happy here?
Well, my feeling is that if you give people freedom to choose, they can choose to stay in their own tradition and respect the people that go forward into a new era.
Can you respect people? Oh, sorry, go on.
They should be able to live together and respect each other's choices.
Can you respect someone if you believe that their prophet is a false prophet and it is a false religion?
Well,
is that compatible with respect?
Well, I mean, I don't acknowledge the divine origin of L. Ron Hubbard, but I respect Tom Cruise and John Travolta because I think in terms of their beliefs about psychology and big pharma, I believe a lot of what they say is true.
Interesting.
So I respect their integrity and their honesty in believing some of the things that L. Ron Hubbard said. I think is absolutely right. If you read his book Dianetics, it has a lot of sense in it. I don't think it's necessarily workable because that kind of psychoanalysis is extremely labor intensive and expensive to manage. But to a certain extent, it's much better than what the NHS provides, as far as I can see, in terms of its medical science.
Wow. I'm trying to think of other religious figures that other people would have to not acknowledge. I mean, Sikhism, Guru Nanak is regarded as a great teacher. I don't know if he calls himself a prophet or not. Maybe it's sometimes we're very quick to look through things through our own lens. And if you've come from the Abrahamic tradition and someone else has a different religion, you'll say, well, who's your prophet? What book did he bring? But maybe they have a different understanding of how religion works. Maybe it's not so much about revelation as it is about realization or reflecting. I mean, Buddha apparently, some people regard him as a prophet, some people do not, or some people are agnostic about it. Rather than receiving a revelation, he seemed to look inwards and find the divine within himself. He came to some kind of realization, some kind of epiphany that brought him to nirvana. Maybe it's a different way of looking at it.
Well, Guru Nanak, his intention was to bring peace between the Muslims and the Hindus. And why not? Why not?
I listened to a scholar one evening, Sheikh Imran Hussain, very wise man, and he mentioned exactly what you just said. And you would suspect sometimes a Muslim to say, oh, Guru Nanak, false prophet, we don't follow him, stay away. And he said Guru Nanak was doing what the Muslims should have been doing at the time, which is uniting with the Hindus. The Hindus and the Muslims falling for the old trick of divide and conquer and bickering between each other, and the British benefiting from that. they should have been uniting together. That's what should be happening in the Holy Land. Pete's gone, but I'm sure he can still hear me. In the Holy Land, people of all faiths, of all ethnic backgrounds, should be uniting together under one banner. You could call it Israel, Palestine, Palestine, Israel. But until everyone is living equally as an equal citizen, it will be very hard to find that unity. But some of the Jewish immigrants to Palestine who arrived from the Middle East, who found they were second-class citizens when they arrived, the Mizrahi Jews and the Sephardic Jews from North Africa, who spoke Arabic, were looked down upon by the Ashkenazi European Jews that were the ruling elite. They found themselves second-class citizens, and some of them said, well, I'm closer to the Arabs than I am to these European settlers, and some of them even joined the liberation movement. They made their own liberation movement. They made their own version of the Black Panthers, they called themselves, and some of them even began campaigning on behalf of the Palestinians because they were second-class citizens. So they thought, I'm going to unite with my fellow oppressed brother. But what some people make the mistake of, when they are a second-class citizen, they look to punch down and they attack the third and the fourth class citizens rather than banding together. And I'm sure that's happened in other societies, not just in Palestine. It's amazing the number of brown faces in the Tory cabinet, the Suella Braverman, who is very keen on preventing illegal immigration or asylum seekers. You can see there's like a racism that is, as I call it, punching down to try and be as good as the elite so-called white race, rather than trying to elevate everybody else who's been living under the cosh, so to speak.
Yes, listening to George Galloway, he talks about how there are a lot of Jews who believe in the oneness of the entire human race, and they have campaigned for the blacks and against apartheid in South Africa.
South Africa in particular, Ruth First, Dennis Goldberg. He reels off the names of the white Europeans in the ANC, African National Congress, who were fighting for equal rights.
Including a lot of Jews. A lot of people.
So many of them of Jewish background.
Yeah.
And that must be because in every country they've gone, Jewish people have known what it's like to be second class, third class, downtrodden, looked down upon.
Yeah.
And that's one of the arguments that the Israel supporters have for the creation of the Jewish homeland, as it says in the Balfour Declaration, that Jews would never be safe anywhere in the world without a Jewish homeland. And it's kind of a capitulation to anti-Semitism to go and have to make a homeland somewhere else where people are already living and turf many of them out and prevent them from returning. But they, as I say, often history is not about what happened, it's about whether what happened was justifiable.
Or is there a better way? You know, I mean, you've got Jews like, if you've got Jews in Israel, like, is it Professor Finkelstein, who believe in social justice for the non-Jews, who believes, I don't know his work very in any detail, but it seems to me he believes in social justice for all.
Well, Norman Finkelstein he's an American Jew. He's not Israeli, but he's an American academic, and his family perished in the Holocaust. And he, because of that very reason, has been very big on supporting Palestinian human rights and the rights of the Palestinians. But there are others we could mention. I mean, Ilan Pappé is an Israeli academic who is very much on the same sort of page as Norman Finkelstein. Norman Finkelstein took a lot of criticism in the pro-Palestine ranks a few years ago because he moved towards the kind of two-state solution mentality, which is a fair enough compromise if that's what you think should happen. I think some of the Palestinian supporters didn't like that move. They were very much in favor of what you were talking about, equality for everybody under one banner and the right to return. But I mean, I think it should be for the people that live in the land to decide their future, really. We've got a comment. Simon Hindmarsh is mentioning Miko Piled. Yeah, is another. I think Miko Piled is an Israeli academic. Is he the what they call? He calls himself the general's son. I think this is a son of someone high up in the Israeli military who came to the conclusion that this is not the way. Apartheid is not the way, and we need to move forward together. Another name that springs to mind is Gilad Atzmon, a great saxophonist, actually, but also an academic who I think he sort of describes himself as an ex-Israeli because he's done away with the identity. He is Israeli originally, on of a Jewish background, but he doesn't want to live in a country where there's that class system, where there's, and it's not just a two-tier society, because as I said, the Sephardic and Mizrahi Jewish people have always had a second-class citizenship status under the Ashkenazi Europeans. I don't think there's ever been a non-Ashkenazi prime minister of Israel. Could be wrong. Someone correct me on that. But they've tended to dominate. Below those Middle Eastern Jews, who are referred to as Aravim, as an insult in Hebrew, you're Arabs. Below them would be the Ethiopian black Jews that arrived from sort of the 1980s onwards, fleeing famine, brought into the country, helped bolster the numbers of Jewish citizens, but were they Jewish enough? And at one point they were given birth control drugs without their knowledge or consent in an almost eugenic act of racism. So there's your third-class citizens. Below that is your so-called Arab Israeli citizens, and below that is Palestinians living in the camps in the West Bank, in Gaza, and elsewhere. But come and tell me if I'm wrong. If someone wants to debate me, oh look, here's Andre. Welcome, Andre. Who owns Palestine?
Hi guys, you all right?
Hi, fine. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
This is your special request.
Pete, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Excuse me, because I had a problem. I don't know what it is. My Wi-Fi closed on my tablet, so I didn't. For some reason, I couldn't get it back up.
Oh, yeah, I've been having a lot of problems with my Wi-Fi. Well, luckily we're all here. Andre, give it to me. Who owns the land of Palestine?
You can't just you can't just say it like that, because you know, there's different levels to this. You can say who owns any land at the end of the day. So it's for everyone.
That's what Pete said. Pete said the Beaker people own Britain, followed by the Celts, followed by all the invasions. There's been many people in many lands, that's for sure. But
land is owned by humans. We are the custodians of the planet. Yeah. So if you want to get deep about it, that's how I see it. All right. However, in layman terms, for the world that we live in right now, it's who can defend it. If you can't defend the land, then it's not yours, isn't it? It's as simple as that.
Might is right.
Might is right. That's
Rise
the
and kill first. The history of.
I'm sorry to say it, but that's the world we live in.
Or as the Victorians would say, fortis est veritas. Strength is truth.
There you go. We're
The
going
thing is,
Latin.
it isn't. It isn't. I feel that ideally we should have a world federal government, which is representative.
Pete, you're saying it's not right.
No, it's not morally right. It's moral insanity.
Oh
to me.
yeah, of course. But moral is a curse, isn't it? At the end of the day, because at the end of the day, some people live by morals, and the other people abuse those who live by morals. So I could say morals is a curse, if you get my meaning.
Well, I'd rather be a hero than a devil.
There you go.
I agree. However, sipping crystals and eating caviar sometimes feel a lot better than being downtrodden, doesn't it?
Well, I'd rather be able to sleep at night and feel that I can die with some prospect of the creator of the universe being pleased with me when I die.
Yeah, because you can't put a price on that.
No. Like Jesus said, what good does it do a soul that he should gain the whole world but lose his own soul? So, to me, people are heroic and pay the price, like JFK and Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. They're heroes, even though they paid a hell of a high price for standing up for moral goodness.
You know what, Pete, Jules?
Yeah.
Sometimes wisdom sometimes wisdom can be a curse, because you sit down and you analyze a lot of things when you get older, more so than you do when you're young, free, and happy-go-lucky. But I hear what you just said, Pete, and it makes a lot. It resonates with me. I understand exactly what you just said. But what I will say is this: we don't really know if there's life after death. We don't. We have faith to believe that there's life after death, but we don't really know. You live on this planet for, if you're lucky, you're going to get 70 years, right? If you're lucky. If God wills it, you're going to have 70. But the fact of the matter is some of these people, Jesus lived to 32. There's other people, Malcolm X died before 40. How do we even know that there's life after death for them to be losing that life, not enjoying it, being downtrodden the whole time they're here, and it being a struggle? Why has everything got to be a struggle? Do you understand? What I will tell you is in physical, practical, pragmatic terms, China fought for their independence, and look where they are today. Russia fought for their independence, and look where they are today. They didn't sit down saying, like my people do, singing songs every 5 minutes, right here in church, praying to God for blessings. Do you understand? The fact of the matter is they got up and they done something about it. And, maybe I'm stupid, I don't know, but I just look into things in a deeper way. And when I look at the Bible stories, for example, I see they're saying, oh yeah, turn the other cheek. That's not what I see. What I see is might is right, pay dividends. David got up, the Israelites were being bullied. David got up against the Philistines, Goliath, right? Yeah, hit him in the head with a rock. Next thing you know, the Philistines ran off. Israel was saved. The same thing goes for Moses. Hundreds of years, I think it was 400 years the Israelites were in captivity. And what happened was Moses come back, right, within a short space of time, 10 plagues, and next thing you know, everyone's released. The same thing goes for Solomon and the story of the two babies, right? And the baby. When he said to the ladies were arguing for time over who you know, to the point that it had to come up in front of King Solomon. Sorry, it had to come up in front of him. And when it came up in front of him, he said, "Fine, cut the baby in half, and you each have a half each." The real mum shouted out. The might got the results. Do you understand? Vietnam suffered massive, catastrophic casualties in their fight for freedom. But it wasn't just against America. They were fighting against France. Owned the place for about 100 years prior to that. So they kicked them out. Then they went back and kicked out the Americans. Yeah. Okay? And it's a thriving country at the moment. You know, it's thriving. You know, I just believe, and my life as well, I've realized that you have to stick up for yourself. And if you don't do it successfully, you snooze, you lose. You know, I feel the same thing applies to my people. I think we're sitting back too far and moaning and groaning. Oh, reparations. Oh, we want, you know, oh, you stole this. I don't agree with that word stole. I personally don't agree with the word stole. Steal. I think, you know, it's always been called booty. I don't know who renamed it stealing, because at the end of the day, the same said people who will sit down and say this is wrong for one nation will turn around and say for another nation, oh yeah, he was a great king, he was a great emperor. Well, why are you bigging him up for? He stole things, he took over countries and made an empire just like that one did. Why are you bigging up Napoleon for? Why are you bigging up Julius Caesar for? Why are you bigging up Alexander the Great? I mean, who talks bad about Alexander the Great? No one. Well, look at the landmass and look at he fed the soldiers with other people's wealth. That's booty.
Morality's changed. We've moved on. We know it's wrong now.
No, we haven't. We think we've moved on, Jules. We think we've moved on. We haven't. We still love blood sports. Yeah. We still love seeing two men kick each other's head in. We still, you know, the Queen's funeral the other day. You know, I saw her coffin must be 3 or 4 times. Everything else I was looking at was soldiers. The whole thing was, look at the might of the empire. Look at this. Anytime a state person's died, it's look at the might of our army and all of that. So when you're saying we've moved on, then what? What are they just there for show then? What is it?
You don't think we gradually get more moral as time goes on?
The weapons, look at the bullets we got. Oh, it's just there to look at. It's not in a museum. We're actually using that right to enforce our will across the world.
We've abolished slavery. Is that not progress? Slavery was acceptable everywhere. Now it's unacceptable. That's progress.
To me, Jules, that's another topic, because we're talking about might is right, and we're talking about we're talking about Palestine and who owns it. Yeah, we're talking about landmass. We're not talking. You know, we've had that discussion, the three of us, before.
Well, just because you brought up all the Alexander the Greats and the rest of it, and we could equally say America was created in a similar way, and the Native Americans were driven off their land, just as the Palestinians were. We now know it's wrong. We now got international law, and it's not that it happened back then. It's happening now. It's happening tonight. The occupation is currently happening right now, and we can stop it.
I think the way forward is a little bit of a compromise between the two ideas, where you say that force is needed, but force should hopefully, as soon as possible, because it's not happening yet, but hopefully...
No, Pete. I never said...
Can I just finish what I'm saying? What I'm saying is that force should be the servant of justice. Now, we have to talk to each other as a human race to try to come to some agreement, some consensus as what the principles of justice demand. That every voice is heard, every people is treated with justice and fairness. Everybody's equal before the law. A deep state Harvard law professor is equal before God, equal before the law to a Kalahari bushman from Namibia. When we got that world, and you can see in Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry understood it. Jerry Anderson understood it. Peter Capaldi, Doctor Who, understands that the foundation of Doctor Who is the principle of kindness. And the Expanse, that had the same moral underpinning as well. When the human race understands that every human being, every sentient being before God is equal, no matter how much money they've got, no matter how many arms they've got, no matter what might they've got, they're equal before the law. And we have that philosophy ruling the whole world. Then we're getting somewhere. Then we can start rebuilding civilization on a sane foundation. Because at the moment it's insane. It has been for thousands of years. We need to get beyond either mamby-pamby pacifism, which isn't going to help. We've got to get beyond the idea of law of the jungle and survival of the fittest, because that's, like Mahatma Gandhi said, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, everybody's blind. You need to get to where force is the servant of justice, where every human being is equal before the law. That's my vision for the future anyway. I think I may be a dreamer, but not the only one, as John Lennon said.
Pete, what you just said, if I back it 100%, me personally, I back it 100%. What a lovely world it would be. But you drew reference to Doctor Who, and that's the problem with everybody I hear who blows that trumpet which you're blowing, which I love, by the way, yeah? But that's the problem. You're mentioning Doctor Who, and that's the whole fact. It's not reality. It's not reality to the world we live in, yeah? You can say to me, Andre, you can't take my banana, it's my banana. But if I feel, and I'm just using it as an example, I feel, well, there's no one around to stop me. I want the banana, I'm taking it. And that is the world. That's the reality of the world we live in. And we say things are bad now. Yeah, imagine back in the Roman times and before in pagan Britain, pagan Europe, should I say, your wife goes down to the river to wash clothes or to catch water. Some guy pulls up on a horseback, knocks her out, puts her on the horse and walks.
Muted, Andre.
Yeah, we get the point, Andre. No, he's back. He's back in. But that's the thing. I don't know what happened there. We gradually get better. As you said, it would have been in the Roman times worse than it is now. It might be bad now, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Progression, right, Pete?
Yeah. But it's not. I think Andre would point out that progression is not in one direction. We are declining. We are decaying. There's moral degeneration at the moment, and it's getting worse. So I agree that there are times when the morals disappear and they go away, but they're going to come back. They're going to come back.
Look, at the end of the day, we're here to talk about Palestine. So, the question is Palestine, who owns it? And the fact of the matter is the Israelis own it.
Yeah, but if they treated their fellow citizens, whether they're Druze, they're Muslims, they're Christians, with the same respect that they treat themselves with, if they all equal before the law, economically, politically, in every way, then you'd get some progress. They need to change their culture and stop indulging in this one person superior to another. We're all equal before God. It doesn't matter what revelation you believe in. We're equal before God.
Pete, what you just said as well, Cyrus the Great from Persia was known for that. When he conquered people, he treated them in a certain way, and his subjects loved him. That's the way to be honest. Absolutely.
Legislation acknowledging every revelation as the person's right, freedom of religion. Cyrus the Great's legislation about tolerance of religion, of every faith, including the Jews, because it was a Zoroastrian country then. That's the way forward, where every revelation, even if we don't acknowledge it personally, you respect the other person's belief in it. That's the way forward.
I agree.
Omar, you've popped on with 4 minutes to go. Away from that. What say you?
Well, thank you for having me on, firstly. I want to kind of reiterate what Pete, I think, is saying, that I don't care what happened 2,000 years ago. If I have the paperwork to suggest that I purchased this house, and I've been here for, my grandfather was here, and my great-grandfather, and so on and so on, that's not my concern what happened 2,000 or 5,000 years ago when Moses was around, allegedly. The case is now. If I've got the paperwork, states it's my house, then it's my house. End of. If
But
Andre's
if that was
house,
75 years ago, when do you stop the clock or when do you start the clock?
the clock, sir, starts when you get the paperwork. If you have paperwork, you have a right in that land. That's your house. If we are 4 people on the panel here, if somebody came to our house now and said that 5,000 years ago, my grandfather was kicked out from this house, get out, please, we would look at him like he's crazy.
Exactly.
If we are looking at him as if he's crazy, then we must be crazy, because this is literally happening over in that country of Palestine.
Well, here's Simon saying India has recently demanded the jewels we stole when it was part of our empire, one of which decorates the front of King Charlie's new hat, and will soon be in a position to come and take them back. Yeah, India are getting strong. What if they want the crown jewels back?
Well,
They can ask what they want. It don't mean they're going to get it.
Well,
he should give them back. I mean, he hardly wears those crown jewels. Every coronation, somebody puts them on. So who cares? Just hand them back to them if they were really stolen.
the British were kicked out of India, with some British living there for a long time, losing their homes and businesses in the 70s. I heard a quote attributed to Churchill recently that said, "We still own part of Pakistan, of India. They call it Pakistan." I don't know if that is a legitimate quote.
Also, I don't think the British were kicked out of India. The British actually left. They didn't want to take a chance.
Was it mutual consent?
No, but but Omar, they were about to get kicked out though, because it was heating up and they didn't have the manpower to handle the riots, etc. So it was a tick-tock clock. They would have, you see, that I respect, because I couldn't argue they did get kicked out, although they did agree. But that's what the British Empire was good at. They knew how far to push things. Their poker face was always good. They know how far to push something before it gets out of hand and makes us look bad. Do you understand? They've done it there. They've done it in Kenya with the Mau Mau uprising. They've done it loads of places. They've done it in Egypt. They've done it in Sudan. They just know. Do you understand? They are empire builders. They're brilliant at it, and they just know how far to push something.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to derail the conversation a tiny bit, if I may, with your permission. Peter, last time I spoke to you, I heard you say something very shocking, which was simply this: there's a little bit of evil in every white man. Did you say that? And tell me what you meant if you did say that.
Well, my subjective perception of black people and Oriental people from China and white people, and it's only a subjective personal perception, but my perception is that when you see people from the black culture and you see people from the Chinese culture, comparing, and it's very subjective, but comparing that to when I talk to white English people, I perceive that in those black people and yellow people from China, you're talking to a fully wired up, fully integrated human being. The heart, the soul, the mind, everything's united in one person. They have integrity. They have a humanness where the emotions and the intellect, it's all connected together and it's working. But with white people, my perception is that our culture divides us up. So my brain is saying something, my heart is saying something different, my soul is saying something different. It's all, what's the word? Compartmentalized. That's my perception. And I think maybe brown people from the Middle East, somewhere in between. I'm just guessing. And this is generalization, I know.
Have
not
you
all
ever
white
felt...
people.
All right.
Not all.
Don't forget. Don't forget, it's okay to be white. But,
yes, but we have to understand the limitations of our culture and the gaps in it. You know, when I mean,
gents, at 10 p.m. we're going to say good night, but we will pick that back up next week. We were here. We're gone. Laters.